Hello and welcome into your Seattle Seahawks Report. I am your host, Jordan Giorgio. We have a ton of news and rumors to get into, so let's go ahead and see what's on tap for today. First bit of news to get into, did the New York Yankees acquire quarterback Russell Wilson from the Texas Rangers? Well, we're giving this one 4 12 flags, which means bring on the 12s. This is 100% true. ESPN's writer Jerry Krasnick writes, the Texas Rangers on Wednesday traded Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson to the Yankees for future considerations. Wilson, 29 years old, has no plans to emulate Deion Sanders or Bo Jackson and try to reinvent himself as a two-sport athlete, but he's maintained his love for baseball and wants to continue his ties to the sport. Wilson is expected to appear at the Yankees' Grapefruit League camp in Tampa, Florida, sometime in February or March. Wilson actually played for 2 years of professional baseball as a second baseman for the Colorado Rockies after being selected in the 4th round of MLB's 2010 first-year player draft. You are watching the Seattle Seahawks Report. I am your host, Jordan Giorgio. We have a ton of news and rumors to get into, but let's go ahead and get into our rumor scale. I got to explain to you guys what this means. If a rumor is given no 12 flags, it means it is fake news, absolutely not happening. If a rumor is given 1 12 flag, there's a small shred of truth to the rumor, but we aren't buying it just yet. If a rumor is given 2 12 flags, it means that people are talking. If a rumor is given 3 12 flags, it means that the rumor is pretty likely to happen. And if a rumor is given 4 12 flags, it means bring on the 12s. The rumor is 100% true. Let's keep it rolling with all the latest news and rumors coming out of Seattle. Next thing I have for you guys, will Richard Sherman be returning to Seattle? Well, I'm giving this one 3 12 flags, which means it is pretty likely. The cornerback, who is coming off an Achilles tendon surgery, spoke to reporters at the 83rd annual Seattle Sports Star of the Year banquet on Thursday night. Sherman was asked if he questions whether he'll be a Seahawk next season. He said, "Not in my mind. We're going to try to get everything back on track, get healthy, and try to get back after it. Hopefully everybody heals up the way they're supposed to. I hope Cam Chancellor can play and it works out however it needs to for him. But obviously the roster is going to look different either way." Sherman told reporters he is ahead of schedule in his rehab and expects to be running by mid-April or mid-May. Sherman is still one of the best corners in the NFL and doesn't question whether that training camp will be in Seattle. Next bit of news and rumors to get into, is the coaching offseason massacre continuing? Well, I'm giving this one 4 12 flags, which means bring on the 12s. This is true. The Seattle Seahawks will now be without their 8th coaching assistant for the 2017 season to start the new year. Ricky Manning Jr., Seattle's assistant defensive backs coach, will not be returning, according to Curtis Crabtree of 950 KJR Seattle. Manning Jr. was hired by the Seahawks in March 2016 after 3 years of coaching in college. He was originally drafted by the Carolina Panthers in the 3rd round of the 2003 NFL Draft, and he spent 6 seasons in the league as a cornerback. Next bit of news and rumors to get into, did Justin Coleman donate his kettle jump jersey? Well, we're giving this one 4 12 flags, which means bring on the 12s. Yes, this is true. Coleman, who has emerged as a key contributor for Seattle in 2017 as an inside nickel defensive back following his arrival in September trade from New England. We all remember the moment when he jumped into a giant red holiday giving kettle from the Salvation Army after scoring a touchdown in the Seahawks win against the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Eve. It was one of the best moments of Seattle's largely disappointing 2017 season. Recently, Coleman reached out through his agent to Seattle's Northwest chapter of the Salvation Army to ask if the organization would be interested in his fundraising idea. Then this week, he stopped in the Salvation Army's Community Center and White Center, a couple miles south of CenturyLink Field, and autographed the game jersey he wore during the interception return for a touchdown in Kettle Leap at Dallas. At Coleman's request, the jersey is up for auction, and the proceeds from the online bidding will benefit the Salvation Army in Seattle. Moving on to the next rumor I've got for you, is New England Patriots Malcom Butler headed to Seattle? Well, we're giving this one 2 12 flags, which means People are talking. Butler is no stranger to Super Bowl heroics, as Seattle's fans can attest to. We hate to remember Butler's game-ending interception in Super Bowl 49, but with Richard Sherman as a potential trade candidate, Butler could be a good fit on a short-term deal. Butler is a free agent, and after being benched in the Super Bowl for unknown reasons, it seems very unlikely that he will return to New England. Shaquille Griffin will start next season, but fellow rookies Delano Hill, Tedrick Thompson, and Mike Tyson may not be ready for the full-time starting role just yet. If that is the case, Butler could be a good pickup for the Seahawks team that is looking to stay competitive while transitioning from the old guard to the new. Taking it now to our final rumor. Will the Seahawks not be making any moves over the next few days? Oh, we're giving this one 4-12 flags, which means bring on the 12s, baby. This is true. The Seattle Seahawks don't have many options at their disposal at this point on trying to cut salary before Saturday's deadline, where some of their base players' salaries turn into guaranteed money, and the few options they do have aren't enticing enough to cement. On Saturday, Doug Baldwin, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson, Justin Britt, and Cam Chancellor all have guaranteed money that will become locked into place without the organization handling the players their walking papers on Friday. With dwindling options, at least in regards to Friday's deadline, the Seahawks won't make any move to any of their players, according to the Seattle Times' Bon Condotta. No one is expected to announce their retirement or be cut on Friday, which means the guarantees will become official on Saturday. And in fact, there's not expected to be any movement to that end anytime soon. You are watching your Seattle Seahawks Report. I'm your host, Jordan Giorgio. Those were your latest news and rumors coming out of Seattle. But now we're going to go ahead and take it to the 17 unrestricted free agents that the Seattle Seahawks have and what to expect them to do with them. First one I got up for you is Paul Richardson. He possesses a swagger and big play capability. Heck, Richardson with quarterback Russell Wilson kept in Seattle in the game against Houston. Baldwin has taken the spot at slot and become a more reliable third down threat. But Richardson, the former Colorado Buffalo, finally came into his own on the outside against some of the best defenders in the league. They should re-sign him with an expected contract around $6 million. Let's keep it rolling here. Up next, strong safety Bradley McDougald. After signing a one-year contract from Tampa Bay, McDougald was part of the defense more than anticipated due to injury, and he excelled in it. One of the glaring issues in the 2016 season was the injury to safety Earl Thomas. This put Steven Terrell in the starting role, and that did not work out so well. With the career of starting safety Cam Chancellor in doubt, McDougald is a strong candidate to work well with Thomas on the exterior of the defense for the foreseeable future. McDougald's style will not necessarily punish a wide receiver or tight end, but he plays within himself, and he fits nearly perfect with what Seattle's defense has going on. They should expect to re-sign him. Defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson is up next. Considering his age at 27 and his dynamic ability, Richardson should sit high at the top of the Seahawks board. Richardson, with his playmaking capabilities, along with two other young defensive tackles in Reed and Jones, he should be a must to new defensive coordinator Ken Norton Jr. He can develop Richardson, Reed, and Jones into a three-headed monster. If the other reports are true about many core players moving on from the team, there should be money to sign Richardson, and they should re-sign him, and he is expected to get a contract around $12 million a year. Next up, running back Eddie Lacy. He signed to a one-year deal in March. The former Green Bay running back was seen as Seattle's splashiest acquisition of the offseason. Although the terms weren't cheap, $3.5 million guaranteed, they weren't outrageous for somebody who earned recognition as the 2013 AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. He rushed 69 times for 179 yards, averaging 2.6 yards per carry, basically going from beast mode to feast mode with Eddie Lacy, and they shouldn't resign him. Luke Joeckel up next. The Seahawks signed him to a one-year deal worth about $8 million last year, which was more money than they had allowed to the entire offensive line in 2016. Joeckel's first 4 years in the league included 2 seasons in which he missed the majority of the Jaguars game with injury, and 2 seasons in which he was very underwhelming and inconsistent at left tackle. The hope was that the one-year deal Joeckel could prove he could stay healthy, but also that even if he was a bust at tackle, that he could be an above-average player at guard. Joeckel couldn't really prove that point. Either point was true, and after requiring a mid-season knee injury, Joeckel ended up missing 5 games and the Seahawks went 3-2 in his absence. You can get a roller coaster project in the draft or a third-tier free agency for a lot less, so that's why I think Seattle needs to either spend big money on someone else. Moving on, tight end Jimmy Graham will turn 32 this offseason, and he made $10 million in 2017. He is coming off a season where he had 57 receptions, 520 yards, and 10 touchdowns. This was the first year Graham had double-digit touchdowns with Seattle, but had his lowest amount of receiving yards since his rookie season. It doesn't make sense to pay that kind of money he'll demand in free agency considering his age and inability to block. Saving the money will allow the team to address bigger needs on offense and defense. You are watching your Seattle Seahawks Report. I am your host, Jordan Giorgio. Let's keep it rolling here with the 17 unrestricted free agents that the Seahawks have and what to expect with them. Next up, we've got Michael Wilhoite. He signed a one-year, $1.5 million contract with Seattle back in March. A total of 21 tackles this past season, played in 14 games, started in 9, 27 tackles, 1 interception in 2017. He had a serviceable year as a starting strong side linebacker and backup in the middle, but the Seahawks could also look for younger options than the 31-year-old Wilhoite. I think they should let him walk and look for some younger guys. Moving on, we've got Deshawn Shead. He played in 2 games with 2 tackles in his 7th season. Played all 6 seasons with the Seahawks, and he's not bringing anything to the table, and it's time to let him go. Next up, kicker Blair Walsh. He had a tough first season in Seattle, and it's hard to envision that it won't be his only one. That leaves Seattle needing a kicker. Walsh's biggest kick for the Seahawks came in January 10, 2016, and it's hard to say whether or not they should re-sign him. I think they should consider, though, re-signing him because a decent kicker is better than no kicker. Next up, we've got defensive end Marcus Smith. He played in 14 games, started in none, played in 23% of snaps, 2.5 sacks, 14 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles. He will probably be a back for the Seahawks. He's a serviceable backup who wouldn't seem to have a big market, which means he could be easy for Seattle to get him back if they want him. Moving on, we've got guard Oday Aboushi. He started 8 games at guard before a season-ending shoulder injury. He will probably be coming back, but just as a depth player. Next up, cornerback Byron Maxwell. He was brought back to Seattle once Richard Sherman went down with a torn Achilles in Week 9. Maxwell returned to Seattle after leaving as a free agent in 2015 to sign with the Philadelphia Eagles for some big money. After Chip Kelly's tenure in Philadelphia fell apart almost a year later, Maxwell was traded along with Kiko Alonso to the Miami Dolphins. His post-Seahawks play improved in Miami, particularly last late season when he and Tony Lippett's strong play helped the Dolphins to a playoff spot. He played in 9 games, 7 with Seattle, played 68% of snaps, 46 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 interception. Expect him to be back next season. Next up, Terence Garvin, inside linebacker, entering his 6th season, 25 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. He's a backup linebacker and also a solid special teams player and a guy Seattle might want back. Next up on our list, quarterback Austin Davis. He played just 2 snaps all season. Trayvon Boykin was on the practice squad all season, and Seattle could just bring back both of them to compete to be Wilson's backup. He also played for the Rams and Browns. His career record is 10 starts and 3-7 with 2,548 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Moving on, we've got guard Matt Tobin. He was played sparingly after being acquired in the wake of George Faint's injury, but has a lot of versatility that Seattle may want to retain. He played in only 87 snaps all season, started in 21 games, and his fifth-year career, the Seahawks will most likely keep him as a depth player. Next up, outside linebacker Dewey McDonald. He had an ACL surgery after playing just 4 games. The team acquired McDonald from the Oakland Raiders last season during final cuts to stir up their special teams, and he provided them with 6 special teams tackles in 2016, tied for the team high with Thorpe. But overall, McDougald doesn't seem worth it for the Seahawks. You most likely won't see him back next season. And lastly, tight end Luke Willson. All things considered, the Graham experiment did not completely fail, but a Seattle team focused around the pass compared to the run did not blend well. Together with Bevel and possibly Graham departing, Willson has to fit in the 2018 plans for Seattle. The Seahawks need to circle back to the run and use passing downs with a play-action approach. Willson, coupled with second-year Nick Vannett, are viable options as tight ends who can block as well as run proper routes, and they should re-sign him. But let's take it to a quick reaction poll before we sign off. Which player do you want the Seahawks to sign the most? Give me a heart for Jimmy Graham, a wow face for Paul Richardson, a ha-ha for Eddie Lacy, or a like for Sheldon Richardson. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thanks so much for tuning in to your Seattle Seahawks Report. I am your host, Jordan Giorgio. Make sure to go ahead and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jordan Giorgio. And make sure to go ahead and like the Seattle Seahawks from Chat Sports Facebook page so you get a notification every time we go live. But until then, we'll see you next time.